Record. All right, I just want to make sure that we're live here. So Melissa, we've got a shared Google Doc, so she normally will tell us what's going on. I think we're good. Yes, we are. All right, an official welcome to this has become a weekly occurrence, guys, here on the WPPI page. Welcome to our weekly Q&A leading up to the WPPI annual print, film, and album competition. A huge welcome to Tony Hewitt, who is from the future. Tony Hewitt's from Perth, Australia. It's the Florida of Australia, I think. Would you call it the Florida of Australia there, Tony?
Say no.
It's no. It's got a lot of differences. This is we're close to utopia, and it is tomorrow. And I can assure you that when you all wake up tomorrow, it'll be a beautiful day because I'm here.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who are living under a rock, Tony Hewitt, he's one of my personal heroes, an incredible human being. He has this natural knack of bringing out the best in everyone around him. He just has that knack. He's an incredible, accomplished photographer for what, 3-4 decades now, man. I can't even.
Come on, he's up.
Well, three decades, isn't that 3? I've been doing it for 28 years. You're going to be
31 years.
There you go. 3 decades. All right. I knew you were. So 3 decades. He's a portrait photographer. He's done weddings in his career. Right now, I think he's leading the way. In my opinion, I think he's doing the most incredibly unique work in the landscape aerial business. He's revitalized and repopularized and been able to bring out the best in that particular genre. He's a triple master of WPPI, Grand Master of the AIPP in Australia, which you'd say is somewhat of the equivalent organisation in Australia. He's been an entrant in all of these competitions, a chairman of judges and jurors. An official welcome to one of my best mates, Tony Hewitt. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jerry. What a pleasure. And gee, mate, I forgot how good you were at PR and how much. Thank you.
No worries, mate. Thank you so much. There's so much more to say, but again, if you want to know more about these guys, you've got to Google them and everything will be awesome. Okay, so that's that. Now, Susan Stripling, an incredible photographer. I love the way I've seen, you were amazing when I met you, but to see your growth in the industry and all the pivots that you've done, I love the self-portrait work that you've been doing, very introspective stuff that you've been doing in the last year. It's been amazing. A hugely accomplished wedding photographer, Grand Master of WPPI. I think there's only the second female to be in that mix, but certainly one of the top 10 Grand Masters of WPPI. A huge welcome to you and great to connect with you. Hello.
Hi, I am here. I am awake.
It's been a crazy time, guys. I want to learn a bit about what you guys have done in the last year or so, because I know that many people are inspired by your work and your time and your talent and all the things that you've done in the industry. Tony, I want to cut to you. So tell us a bit about what you're doing currently. What are you excited about, and what's been your main focus in the last year and a half?
Okay, the first thing I've got to say I'm excited about is I'm going live with Jerry Ghionis and Susan Stripling, 2 of my favourite people. I do miss the hugs. So that's something I'm definitely excited about. Look, we got the official opening of my 7th solo with my gallery that represents my work here in Australia, Linton and Kay. So that's pretty excited. The last sort of week getting the images up and having a little hissy fit because I felt that when I walked in, I was underwhelmed. So I had an image replaced and resized. And I suppose that's the perfectionist in me. So that exhibition has been super exciting and it's different and it's kind of takes another twist. And I was disappointed and I was excited. Then I was disappointed and I thought it looks like crap. And now I think it looks okay. And who cares? Because tonight 100 people will squeeze into this little gallery and they'll all look at it and hopefully it goes well. We've already had buyers and it's good now because I get corporates come through and people who know my work. So that's kind of taken a big chunk of my focus recently. Coaching, I found over that you talked about the last year with COVID, I picked up more coaching clients, which I'm really keen to deal with. I have a mastermind group, Jerry, that you know about, which is a small group I run every year, about 6 people. And that's super exciting this year because this year's group is last year's group. They all said, can we go again? And I thought about it long and hard. And I thought this would be interesting to try and work with the same people for a second year. It's a challenge to me as a coach. And that's going super well. And then I have all my individuals, and I've got several people in the United States, a Canadian, an Indian lady, someone in Europe, and of course a couple of local Aussies and Eastern Staters. So coaching and the exhibition work's keeping me super busy. And even with the workshops, I've managed to set up a few locally for aerial, because we do have in WA some of the world's absolute best stuff for the fine art aerial. So taking myself to those new areas, new challenges. Little sneak preview, but it's still a couple of years away. A children's book, which I'm really excited about, to teach kids what the world looks like from another way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and really just I've stepped back a little bit in some of the institute stuff I got involved in, because I was there for about 20 years. I was chairman of awards for about 4 years, and I found that it's a lot of time, Jerry, you know that, you've been involved. So for me to be able to move into some other areas, it's been pretty exciting. So lots going on, looking forward to this exhibition. I've already got 2 more that I've started, just got to work out when we're going to share them and put them up. And looking forward to having an exhibition somewhere in North America very soon, hopefully.
That's awesome. Yeah, look, mate, you deserve every success. And for those who don't know, we've sort of said it under our breath a couple of times, but Tony's been really focusing on his aerial landscape photography. And if you see some of the work, it's breathtaking. And it's one thing to be in a plane or a helicopter with with a camera outside and see the world from a different perspective. But he could have 15 people around him, and he could be the one that just knows when to shoot, how to crop, and not only get the right shot, but also post-produce in a way that most people don't. You think of landscape photography as not really, we don't really do much post-production other than clean things up and all that kind of stuff. But, your interpretation of landscape photography, let alone in the aerial world, has really been revolutionary. So that's incredible, mate. And I can't wait to one day see one of your stores here in Vegas selling prints for like, $1 million and maybe knocking off Peter Lick off his throne. So we'll see how that goes.
We're looking for investors, Jerry, if you're interested.
Yeah, man. But maybe before COVID, I had a bit more cash, but we'll see if we can. Can I just, there's one other thing, and looking at Susan's beautiful face there just reminded me of this, that one of the things that was really pleasing over the last year, we were invited to collaborate with a magazine. It's actually a hardcover book that comes out every year. And anyone who's flown Qantas would have seen it in the Qantas clubs. It's in a lot of the major hotels around the world. And that's called Classic Agenda, or Classic Agenda Heroes. And it's about a 400-page hardcover book. They asked us to include some of the images from our Girt by Sea project, where we flew around the country. And that was a fantastic project, because this year's project, or the book, focused on women heroes. It was the International Year of Women. I think it was International Year of Women, or it was the week of International Women's Week anyway, that it came out. And it was all these everyday heroes, people like a 92-year-old firefighter and things like that. Now, they didn't use my images of people, they had their own, but they used our aerial images to separate the states, and then they gave us the cover. And one of the biggest kicks I got, and you'll love this, Susan, was to go to the launch with some of the biggest, some of the dignitaries, the heads of tourism and that, and have a 5.5 meter canvas of an image as the backdrop to the stage. And watching someone get up, and it was just like, wow, look at that picture. And it kind of brought back the feeling when I was hanging out the plane looking at it. So look, I'm pretty lucky, and I've got to just quickly say, we are so blessed here, because we haven't really had a lot of interruption, other than I don't get to see my friends overseas, and God damn, I miss them. I miss you a lot. But anyway, time will come. So yeah. Well, there you go, man. No, thank you, mate. Thank you for that. And it's funny, because Australia, we're just saying off air there just before we went live, was that the big news is in Victoria, the state where I'm from and I grew up in, there's an outbreak. 15 people have COVID, and they've shut the states down. So no one can travel interstate. But anyway, it's all good. We'll see. We'll see what happens, if the future of civilization will rely on Australia's population or not. But before we get to Susan, just a real quick comment here. So just for those of you who just joined us for the first time in these sort of weekly broadcasts sort of leading up to the competition, we have a shared Google Doc with Melissa. Melissa is actually fielding comments and questions. So if you have questions about the competition, whether it's elementary, whether it's advanced, no matter whether it's related to what we're speaking about. If you have any questions at all, Melissa will answer them and or curate them and feed them to me. And a note from Keith White, who's helped us immensely in the last couple of years, and it's been incredible actually for several years. Keith said, I love Tony's image with the sharks, plus all the colorful landscapes are out of this world. Well, actually, they're in this world, but I get the metaphor here. Thank you, Keith. So that's awesome. So Susan Stripling, you have the name where you can't really just say the words like the name Susan. You just have to say Susan Stripling.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, no, it's a run-on. I get it.
It's so I've been fascinated by the work that you've been producing in the last year. So tell us a bit about that work and how the last year's been for you.
It was terrible, Jerry. Thank you for asking.
Well, you know what? This is the thing. I want brutal honesty because in all seriousness, I think that a lot of photographers, and this might be true, are all saying, "Oh my God, it was amazing! I've thrived." And I'm like, "It was a really shitty year for me, and I made the most of it."
Terrible, you big liars.
Yeah. So tell us about it.
So, well, I mean, it was both the best and the worst year of my entire life. So basically, in one weekend in March, like I lost my whole year of work. We were at WPPI, came home, did a speaking engagement in Kentucky, came home, shot a wedding, went to London. I literally did the checklist of how to get COVID, and somehow managed to never, I mean, it was literally like, go to amusement park, check. Go to a large convention center? Absolutely. Hug a bunch of strangers? Totally. But I got home, and like the weekend that I got home was when the entire state of New York shut down. And I was supposed to shoot 35 weddings. And in a span of about 48 hours, I lost 25 of them. They all canceled or rescheduled, or most everybody just put their dates on hold. Right. So I was dealing with the panic of my whole wedding season basically falling apart overnight. Right. My oldest daughter came home from spring break that weekend. They told her to maybe we'll be like home for an extra couple of weeks. She never went back to school. So it was like everything just hit in a weekend. And I did this pandemic here in New York City, which was, honestly, I still don't think all of us have processed what it was like. Like they talk about like refrigerated mortar trucks and hearing sirens all the time. And that's exactly what it was like. Like the streets were a ghost town. All you could hear were ambulances. It was bad. Yeah. And my schedule went from packed to absolutely nothing. The day that it all fell apart, I moved my studio from one studio to another. The movers shoved boxes in the space and I didn't go back for months. And then I went in, looked at all of the boxes, had an immediate panic attack and left again. So I've been in my new studio space probably for about 14, 15 months now, but I've only been working in there for 3 months because I just ignored it for a year. I didn't do anything for a year. I think I shot 5 weddings last year. It really, really, really sucked. And it was also amazing because I shot 5 weddings last year. Do you know what? Weekends are incredible. Like, I don't know if you remember what this is like, Jerry, but weekends are so awesome. There's this thing called brunch and they'll bring it to your house. Like it's, so that's funny. Basically what I did last year was, immediately started going to therapy, which was like the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And I just took time to do everything that I've ever wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to paint. So I learned how to paint. And I wanted to walk around in the cemetery in my neighborhood and take a bunch of pictures. And so I started doing fine artwork in there, and I wanted to do self-portraits. So I started doing self-portraits. You do see dead people. That's what I've heard. I actually do. It's actually the most amazing place in my neighborhood. And I hope nobody ever comes because it's amazing and it's quiet. But I went probably about 4 to 5 months without touching a camera at all. And it ended up being kind of one of the best things to ever happen to me because I'm not good at slowing down. I'm not good at pressing pause on anything in my life. Right. And it was like the universe basically said, sit down and stay down for a year. Right. And literally all I talked about in the first 4 or 5 months of therapy were, who am I if I'm not working? Like I've been working my whole life. I've been doing this for over 20 years. This has largely defined who I am as a human being. So it's literally been taking my business and my personal life apart and putting it back together over a year. So ultimately what's come out of the year has been beautiful, but I never want to ever do it ever again. Like I'm good. I've learned my life lessons. I've evolved as a human being. We can stop now. Like enough is enough. But
You've got your 2020 tattoo.
Yes, I'm running out of arms to put ink on. Like I'm just, leave me alone. I'm gonna end up covered in tattoos, and it's just, please someone hire me for things. But a couple of weeks ago, it's like once New York kind of hit a tipping point with vaccinations, weddings aren't rescheduling anymore. They're going full steam ahead. They're smaller, which is amazing. But people now need new headshots and new pictures for LinkedIn and new branding images. And all of a sudden, I'm just like, I'm overwhelmed in a good way. So last year was terrible and amazing. So I think a lot of people have gone very woo-woo into like that it was the best year of my life, which sure. But I also thought I was going to die for about 6 months. So let's just really never do that ever again, ever.
Totally empathize with you. I love that, you found the harmony in the chaos. And the fact is that, you at least you took control of things over that you could, and you accepted the things that you couldn't. And the fact is that now, and I've said this for months now, history repeats itself. We had the influenza in 1918. It was after World War I. We had the roaring 20s. Everyone's back at it. Everyone's excited. And certainly for those watching internationally, I know some countries are doing it harder than others, and I empathize with you completely. The fact is that, slowly the world is opening up and people are excited, and they realize what's important, what's meaningful, which is family, relationships, job fulfillment, mental health. All those things are so important. And I think it's ended up and will be an incredible gift to our industry. We just have to take advantage of it. So an incredible journey that you've both had. And obviously we can talk for hours on both your individual journeys because you have so much knowledge and wisdom to impart. I want to talk now, obviously pivot to WPPI and the competition. Tony, having been involved in almost every single way in the competition as a judge, as a chairman, as a directing the judges and all the things that you do for Australia and the WPPI, I want to take us back to when you first entered. How did you feel before you first entered, and how did that? What was that impetus behind? You know what, man, I'm gonna enter, and how did that feel for you as from going from never entered before to finally entering?
In a word, I was terrified. I was terrified I would not be good enough. I think Susan mentioned in her thinking back to when COVID started, she said there was a period where she didn't know who she was. And I think our identity, one of the things I've learned over the years is the identity factor, where we associate ourselves with our results. We associate ourselves with the look of our studio, with the last photo. If we do a good job, we're good. And if we do a bad job, we're crap, and so on. So that first entry, I remember that's the only year and the only competition I ever entered where I got nothing. And it crushed me. I thought, these were 4 images from a busy wedding season. I'd shot 4 weddings that year. I was absolutely flat out. And I thought, these are absolute ball terrors. These are gonna, I'm gonna hit the industry with a bang, and everyone's going to go, holy crap, who's this guy? And I went and got them matted by one of the best people in Perth who'd been in the industry for a long time, and it's not his fault, but I had these beautiful images. So he put these purple and green mats to match the greens and the lilacs of the dresses, and they looked beautiful. They would look great on somebody's mantelpiece, perhaps, back in the 60s. But anyway, this was back in the late 80s or the early 90s. So I entered, and I remember standing in the room, and, I couldn't breathe. I was waiting, and you all know the feeling that it can't be far away. And 3 hours later, it can't be far away. And then somebody's standing next to you, just got an 107 and gold triple distinction. And you think, oh, no. And then my image come up, and I, you realize that you've been waiting for years for this moment. You started shooting weddings, you've got the courage to enter, you've done the print, you've done the matting, green and purple, and it looked beautiful. I'd realised by this stage into the day, after half a day, that I was the only person who'd entered a non-white mat, apart from maybe 1 or 2 had entered black mats, but certainly no one had entered colour. And nobody had told me this. My print come up, and my print disappeared, and it got 72 and not a comment. And I was standing there and I just remembered like somebody had walked up to me and while still smiling at me and looking me in the eyes, it just gut punched me. It was a poof. And I'm standing there and people are looking at me and I'm trying to keep a smile on my face and not look like I just wanted to run out of the room and disappear and go and take up truck driving, because I had obviously the person who told me when I was 20 that I had no creative bones in my body. It's another story. I was told to stay out of the creative world because I'd never had a future. I just felt terrified, Jerry. So,
yeah.
But I kind of watched other people and I listened to other people and I sat on the fringes and realized that most people had been through that process back then. It was, it's horrible to say it's easier now because I don't think that's true, but I think the judging was like there was only 10 to 20% got silvers and so on. So there is a little bit more elite, you know, and I think it should be. But it was very difficult to get back on the horse. But gee, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did.
Well, it's amazing. Like, we all go through that sort of that stage. And I'm sure, Susan, you would agree that when you enter, even if you've been entering for as long as I have or Tony has, it doesn't mean it's any easier in terms of anticipation. I remember a couple of years ago, that photograph within the groom's, that multiple exposure that I did with the photograph of the bride within the profile of the groom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It came up and Melissa was in the audience and it got the 92 and someone was trying to make it 100. And I literally hurt Melissa's hand because I squeezed her hand so much because I was on the verge of 100. It got a 96, but I still got these butterflies in my stomach and freaking out because you wear your heart on your sleeve. So Susan, tell me about when you, early in your career, when you were entering and even now, how do you feel when your photographs come up and how invested emotionally are you when that happens?
So it's funny, when I first entered, I was a smug little jerk about it because I was like,
I don't believe it.
I still miss you both ever so very, very much. No, but I was like, I've been watching competitions for a year. I'm pretty good at this. Like, I'm going to do great. Like, I'm going to do awesome. Like, I was super hyped and like, enter my prints. I'm sitting there waiting for them to come up. And the first one came up and got like a 74 and they didn't even talk about it. But I immediately got like really defensive and irritated because I was like, what do they know? They don't know what they're talking about. And I was like bristly for a day. And then I came and I kept watching and I was like, actually, they know exactly what they're talking about. And not that I was wrong, not that I was doing anything wrong. I had happy clients. Like, we all know that, but the points they were making were right. And I was too emotionally invested in the work to be able to separate myself out and look at it as a competition image. And I'd made wrong choices. And it took me down a level, which is exactly what I needed. And now knowing all of that, knowing everything that I know about entering, I still have no clue how I'm going to do every single year. Like when I'm prepping prints, we all do this. When you're prepping prints and you're looking at things, you're like, well, this is somewhere between a 74 and a 98. And I'm not really sure because you just don't know how they're going to land. And it is really difficult to sit out there and like look at the work that other people are putting up and everything that comes up. I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. No, wait, that's so good. No, wait, this is so good. And then my image comes up and I'm like, it's crap. What have I done? It is terrible. I never should have shot that. Why did I enter that? And then it gets somewhere between a 74 and a 98. But it is the one time a year that I really get to sit with all of the work that I made over the previous year and look at it with a critical eye. So I just view the competition process now as it's like an integral part of my own continual evolution as a photographer, like looking at some of the self-portrait stuff and the, fine art stuff I've done over the past year and considering those as possible entries. It's just really humbling, I guess, to look at your own work and compare it to your peers.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
We all have heart attacks. I've cried in the bathroom. I've gone out in the hallway and said really vile words. Like, none of us are cool, calm, and collected. And if you think we are just straight lying to you until we can go to the bathroom and cry or go back to our rooms and scream in pillows. We all do it. You know you
Susan,
do it, Gary.
Susan, I have personally embraced you many times in between rooms and judging, and I've celebrated with you, and I've also commiserated with you. So and it's great because we are naturally, I guess if you're an artist, usually the word sensitive and artist goes together. And the fact that we are emotionally invested, that's what makes us great. And it can also be the death of us. My question to you is—
it can also make us insane and very difficult to be around. Yes, correct. Yes.
I didn't say that.
My friends really love me during those competition days. It's fantastic.
How do you turn that disappointment of a score that you didn't think you wanted or deserved into motivation to do better? Can I ask you, Tony?
Can you say that again? I was just—
So how do you turn that?
Tony, are you up?
Yeah. I'm watching Susan. I think I just so want to give you a hug. Go on.
How do you turn that disappointment into motivation? As in, you got a score that you didn't want or you didn't think you deserved, and how do you turn that from that initial sting, damn it, I wanted better, or I thought I expected more? How do you turn that into motivation to do better? Like, how do you flick that switch? Because some people will enter once, get a bad score, never enter again, and you'll never hear from them again. And other people will like, all right, that stung like a bitch, damn it, let me get better. And then it becomes an incredible story, just like Susan's. But Tony, how is it for you? I mean, you've won a lot more than you've lost, but but in terms of those early days, and even now, I mean, you know,
like you're asking Mr. First Place Hewitt how he feels about not doing well. Okay.
Well, and Tony both. I mean, Tony as well. You've witnessed this through many, you know, students' eyes and students of photography and people that you've mentored over the years. How have you seen people cross that boundary from disappointment to motivation to do better?
Okay, the simple answer is that the secret is to disenfranchise or disconnect from that identity process. You are not your print. So if your print does not do well or your image does not do well, it doesn't mean you didn't do well. You know, what we do, what we say, we are not the words, we are not the action. It's things we do and they are things we say, but we are who we are. You know, I've seen Susan in a rant, and I've seen Susan, the most sexy, gorgeous, I probably shouldn't even be saying that, but, you know, happy, fun-loving, passionate person. But there's also a Susan that's behind all of that. That's the Susan that not everybody will ever get to meet unless she wants them to. It's the same with you, Jerry. I mean, accomplished, confident, you know, I've seen you sing, I've seen you dance, I've seen you do everything pretty much. And most people would think, you know, Jerry's always happy. I mean, you're even bloody good at table tennis, damn you. But you are not, you know, any of us are not that. So I think the first step for me was to realize that the print didn't do well doesn't mean I didn't do well. It means I didn't choose well. It means I've got more to learn. It means the power's with me. Because if we think that we have no control over the outcome and then we are powerless, we do give up. But when we realize that everything that's happened has come from our own actions, our own decisions, our own beliefs, then we do have the power. It empowers us. And what I realized that year was that most of the creative decisions in those entries were made by others. And I don't mean they forced me. I mean, I gave no credibility to my own opinions because I was new to the game. And I think when I see beginners and people starting out, whether they're 18 or whether they're, you know, 50 starting out, and they enter, yes, listen to others, get feedback, get opinions, but remember, it's your image, it's your voice, visual voice. This is what you do. And when you say it, make sure that the feedback's about what you wanted to say, not because someone said, that's a good image, you should enter that. And if you have a gut feeling that says, but I don't even like it, or it's not me, or it's not what I want people to think of me, then don't enter it. Because I learned straight away that I hated those mats. And I'm blaming the mats, but I hated the purple green mats. I didn't even really like the images that much. They were very classic. And the people whose advice I'd asked, not my family, because they were all photographers as well, but a couple of the older people in the industry that I looked at, they liked it because it's what they shot. And I decided, I think there was a point I decided that if I'm going to enter, if I'm going to go through the stress, if I'm going to sit in a room, if I'm going to pay the money, if I'm going to travel to see these things judged, then damn it, it's going to be what I want it to be. And if I'm going to fall over, if I'm going to be slapped down, if I'm going to be told it's no good, then it's my choice, because then I'm in control and I can make a different choice. And so I've been very keen when people ask me for advice to say, look, here's the feedback I want to give you. When you look at your print or you want me to look at it, here's what your print says to me. Now, if you look at me and say, well, that's not what I want it to say to you, then you've got a choice to try and do it in a different way. But if you say, well, I still like it, then you should enter it anyway and listen to the judges. Now, yes, Susan's 100% right. The judges are usually wrong. No, the judges are giving you their opinion. And I think the other lesson that I learned, or the other thing that was a turning point, was the realization that that image, and I probably took a couple of years to learn this, I had an image that I entered in Australia and New Zealand, which happened about 2 weeks apart. And I got a phone call from a friend of mine in New Zealand who was at the judging, who said, I thought I'd better ring you and tell you what your print got. And I was like, yeah, it's been 3 years. I've started getting, I got a gold the year after I got nothing. My first year I won something. And I thought, this will be good. And David says to me, now you're sitting down. I said, oh, here we go. He says, you just got the lowest score in the competition. I was like, yeah. Come on, mate. Yeah, bullshit. Tell me the truth. He goes, no, you got a 58. I said, no way.
They go that low?
He said he got a 58. He said there was nothing else below 60 or something like that. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, there was one comment was, this work was not worthy of a student in high school or something like that. And I was devastated. Now, I'd entered the same image, the exact same print. I'd matted and printed them all together because it was only two. I'd entered it in the Australian Awards. So you can imagine 2 weeks later, I'm at the Australian Awards. Can I pull the print? Can I disqualify myself? I wasn't a judge or a juror or anything. I was just an entrant. So I'm in the back of the room and it came up and I didn't even want to go in the room. I thought this is going to be devastating. And it got an 89. And I remember sitting there and my first feeling was anger at the New Zealanders because I thought, what are you doing, And then I had this other thought that I was just super, super chuffed that the Aussies were generous. And then I realized that, you know what? This whole thing is subjective to such a degree that we really do have to remember that it's just one experience. Each print in each competition has its own life. The same print in a different competition has a different life. These are just little packets of feedback, take them on board. And the tipping point, I don't think for me, it was it was a one day looking back going, oh, wow, I see it. I really see it now. And that's what I try to help people with whenever I see them at any awards, and just help them to understand that.
I love that perspective. It's funny, like, as you were talking about that in terms of, you could be gold in one country and then you could be a student standard in another, so to speak. It is perspective.
No, I'm sorry. I think they said not even as good as a student.
I was trying to be generous, Susan. I was trying to be generous.
It was a very, very long exposure, and they felt that basically they said you've got to be able to at least get it sharp. It's completely out of focus. But in Australia, they loved it. It was a seascape, and in Australia they absolutely love the ethereal ambience of the blah blah blah. So
that's funny.
Yeah,
that's the thing is, I think I want to remind people too that it's not like the Olympics where you're judged by, long jump where it's okay, you jump the longest, or it's not definitive. This is an artistic expression that has to be appreciated from an art, craft, technical perspective, execution, imagination. There's so many lighting, posing, if relevant. There are so many things that go into it. So at the end of the day, you can't dismiss the judges as they've all got it wrong because you didn't get the score that you wanted or you deserved or you thought you deserved. And you can't also say, well, they got it right because they got a gold distinction. So tell me a bit more about that, Susan, because you've transitioned from, obviously you still enter, but you've entered, you've also been a judge for many years, and you've also transitioned to be a chairperson as well. Can I ask you about your experience as a chairperson you've done the last couple of years, and like looking through different eyes, because the unique perspective that we all have, and Susan, I'm asking you specifically this question is, you're looking at the judges and you've got the print right here, and then you're looking at the whole room. Tell me about your thought process as a chairperson and the value that you try to bring in asking the right questions to the judges and how to bring out the best in the value for the participant. Tell me about that process.
Because if you're going to enter, this isn't just an online competition. This is, if you're going to enter your images, you're entering physical prints that go in front of real human beings, and you can sit in the room while all of this is going on. It's all very tangible. But with that, there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of respect held for every single print. Because I remember, you know, very early on in entering, every single thing that the judges said had the power to break my heart or just crush me entirely, even if it was just a simple phrasing or whatever. So I, as a chair especially, I'm just very conscious that every single print that goes up there might be the only print that someone entered, and they might have traveled from all the way across the world to hear it judged. And that's such a precious thing. And as a chair, you're entrusted. I can't believe you people entrust me with other people, which is just, you know, you might want to rethink that. Actually, please don't. I really love it. But part of the job as a chair is to get to know everyone on your panel and their strengths and the things they speak to very well. Some people are really analytical and wonderful when it comes to lighting or the post-production or the moment. So part of my job is to figure out which ones of the judges will best convey what needs to be spoken about each print, because some prints, you know, their great strength is in the lighting, or their big drawback is in the lighting. So you want someone to speak to it properly. So as chairing, you're managing, you know, what needs to be educated in the print, because I've been judging for so long. When a print turns around, I can immediately tell what's going to need to be discussed. So identifying that and then helping find the right judges to speak to that, so that it is both an educational and a respectful experience for the entrant. Hopefully they're in the room.
That's amazing.
Because nothing is worse than having your print turn around and, you know, you get like a 75, and then one of the judges is like, I mean, the composition is just kind of off. And then the print turns around and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean kind of off? Like, I've been sitting here for 14 hours waiting to hear this. Like, give me something more. So, and it's also helping your judges get things out in concise sound bites so that you're not spending like 10 minutes ambling on and on about every single print. And honestly, chairing is to me, the best part of it. I kind of love it, except we get less bathroom breaks than the judges, but that's the only drawback.
It's funny too, as a chairperson too, you have less power in terms of what happens with that particular print. What the chairman's really role is to make sure that we're all on a fair and level playing field, and making sure that respect is given to the print and the whole experience, and value is given with the comments that we're discussing as well. A little bit of housekeeping. A little bit of housekeeping here, guys. So thank you for those comments, Susan. It's amazing. So for those of you who are new to WPPI and just come on board and just started listening to us, just to let you know, the conference and the judging, I want to give you some dates. So the live judging, if you can make it, if you are part of the world where you can actually make it and travel, and you are blessed to be able to do that, August 15 and 16 is going to be the judging. The conference itself is going to be August 16 to 19. On the evening on the 18th will be the awards night. Great reason to dress up and have some fun and celebrate you and yourself and your peers and your efforts. The trade show is going to be the 17th and the 19th. And if you want the whole experience, in other words, if you want to maximize everything to do with WPPI, it will be checking in on the 14th of August, checking out on the 20th. That's a really important thing. Now, we have one more deadline for the competition. So it's really important to actually reiterate that. So
I was going to say, if you're giving us a competition deadline, I kind of need to write that down too. So say it very slowly for all of us.
Okay, your deadline is June 16th. That is the final deadline. What you have to do is you have to, if you're entering the print competition, so the 16 by 20 print competition part of it, you need to upload your original raw file, your completed digital file by the 16th. That's it. If you are entering the in-camera artistry or the album or the filmmaking competition, you must purchase your entries and enter those files. Now, here's the thing. If it's in-camera artistry or the album and you pay and you enter by the 16th of June, you are done. You don't need to do anything else. If you've entered your online entries for 16 by 20, you have to, like I said, upload the raw files, upload the completed digital file, and then you've got 2 more weeks or a couple more weeks at the end of June to send the actual physical prints here at our home here in Las Vegas. Then as far as, like I said, going back to the in-camera artistry and the album competitions, you just must enter those by the 16th. Now, if it's for filmmaking, you must pay for and upload those, or basically enter those online by the 16th, and we must have those physically here in Las Vegas on the address nominated that you'll see, again, by the end of June. So they are the most important dates. Now, here's the thing. Let's face it. COVID happened. We were lucky to actually get the convention in because the whispers of COVID were happening last year's convention. And then obviously the whole world shut down pretty much after the conference. So we're very lucky and fortunate to have the conference happen and the judging and everything. Now, I know most of you haven't photographed in the last year or barely anything. Now, here's the thing. My advice to you is, remember, in the rules, it specifically says you can enter images. Doesn't matter how old they are, in images, albums, in-camera artistry, filmmaking, no matter what it is. You can enter entries that are older than 2 years. That rule has been and done with for the last couple of years. So my advice to you is go back to your earlier work and have a look at your weddings, have a look at your portraits, have a look at your boudoir shoots, landscapes. That no matter what genre it is, there's a home for you at this particular competition. You may have some hidden gems. Now, nudge, nudge, wink, wink here. I'm telling you that because not many people have been photographing in the last year, naturally, I mean, I'm assuming that the entries won't be as heavy. Strategically, you are mad not to go back to your older entries and enter because you're going to have a better chance to win. Okay. So I'm telling me, I am not legally allowed to enter. This troubles me because I'm like, damn it, I'd love to enter, but I can't. Guys, we've all been in that situation where you see what wins and like, damn it, I had that groom shot that I thought was pretty average. Man, I would have won it with that print. Don't be that person this year. Enter your images, enter your albums, enter your films. Try something different. I think I made a comment to you guys last week, is, do a personal shoot, by the end of this week. You know what I mean? Like, you got one more week. Design something in your head, create a portrait, do something incredible. Look at Susan Stripling's work that she's done on her Instagram page, some really beautiful introspective self-portraits. Do something for yourself. Enter something strategically that will be something that is timely. I mean, there are so many causes out there in the world. There's so many stories worth telling. We've all gone through an incredible amount. Pick something meaningful to you. Create something in a week. Couple of weeks, you've got another week to post-process it, enter it by mid-June, and you've got 2 weeks to physically enter it. So you do have time. Get out there and do something with it. We can't wait for that to happen. Can I just add something? Oh, yeah, please go for it. Go for it.
I was just going to say, talking to a couple of students recently about flow, creative flow, and people are asking about how do you get into that? And one of the things I've realized over the years is that flow requires a starting point, but the definition of flow is it's got somewhere to go. And often with our imagery, when you do weddings, it goes to the client, it goes to the bride and groom, it goes to the parents. So you've got a reason to make the piece. You've got a reason to make these images. But if you're out there shooting and you've got nowhere for it to go, then you kind of can hit this wall of like, well, why am I doing this? There's a part of you that sits there and go, well, I'm doing this, but no one's going to see it. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, social media is a great outlet for flow because it gives us a chance to do something. It goes somewhere, then we can do something else and it goes somewhere. But competitions are one of the best outlets for your creativity. It's one of the best places to put it. And Susan alluded earlier that it's that opportunity on an annual basis or a couple of times a year to pass a critical eye over all your work. Now, as you said, to not enter is to deny yourself the opportunity to spend time with your own work and have it go somewhere. Now, it doesn't really matter where it ends up, whether you win gold, whether you get masters, or whether you just get feedback. And feedback might not be words. It could be 58. It's feedback. It tells you whatever you did and put out in the world, this is the response the world's giving you. Now, what do you want to do with that information? So I agree with you. It's a strategy as well that, yes, I might enter weddings because it might be a chance to catch up. But I also see it as the opportunity to go back and pass a critical eye, which is a different critical eye to, say, an exhibition. In the same way that wedding photographers, when they produce that sort of, here's the favorite set for the wedding client, It's not always the same. Here's the favorite set for the awards. So,
oh gosh, so I've had images that I've scored really, really, really high at print comp. Clients didn't even put them in their album. It's not the same thing. Yeah.
So skip it. So only having one outlet limits how you can explore your creativity. I'm a massive fan, an advocate that you should find multiple outlets. Social media is one, but it's kind of the feedback you got to be, remember, don't identify with it. It is what it is, but it pushes your work out. And if you have a bucket and you fill it up with water and there's no outlet at the bottom, no tap at the bottom, it fills up and then whatever you're doing feels wasted. But if you have a tap at the bottom and you turn it on, it flows out the bottom and goes somewhere. Competition is one of those. Social media is another. And of course, your clients is another, and your own home, your friends, your family, charity outlets. I just donated 5 prints to the surf club for the kids, the little kids, and gave them 5 prints. And it was amazing how some of the people who looked at the prints, and they weren't aerials, they were just beautiful morning shots. They said, these aren't photos, these aren't photos. And we raised $4,000 with 5 prints. You know, there is such a satisfaction in seeing work go somewhere, and competition can also be that, irrespective of the outcome. Get into flow.
I love that. I love that you said it's a responsibility for your own creativity, which I think is incredible. Susan, tell me more about the responsibility that we have that have been doing it for a long time, because we enter for our own feedback and progressing our own work. But Susan, what responsibility do we have by still entering after having achieved all these things about really igniting passion in the new generation of photographers? So how do you take that as a leader in the industry? How do you feel about that perspective?
It's interesting when I was thinking about sort of retrospective of work, because when you enter a print comp and you're doing physical prints and you send your physical prints out, your physical prints come back. I moved studios at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was unboxing all of my competition prints from like 10 years, trying to figure out what gets put on the walls and literally laying them out chronologically. Just seeing, even once I felt like I was getting good, seeing how much better I get every single year. And I think, and a bunch of prints that I, entered into competition 10 years ago, I wouldn't have entered now, because I've just, come a long way since then. I think that I'm always really inspired when I see people who are continually reinventing themselves and continually putting out beautiful bodies of work, because I know you guys see people who hit a certain level in their career and it just stays there, right? Like their stuff year in, year out looks exactly the same. They don't explore new genres. They don't try new things. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. I feel like I have a huge responsibility to our industry and to myself personally, honestly, to not do that. I've been doing this for 20 years, but I'm also only 43. Like, I'm not dead yet. I still have so much more to make. What Tony just made big weird eyes at me. What was that? Are you shocked at my advanced age? Like, where?
No, I thought you were 35.
Oh, Tony, thanks. You've known me longer than that. No, I turned 43 this year. I am officially old, apparently. I don't know.
I think Tony's just looking for his name, tattooed somewhere. You know what I mean? Like he just wants
I
to
still have extra skin, so we can put a big. We'll put a Tony Hewitt landscape like right here across the arm.
Tony,
you the armpit.
I was about to say you'll be the armpit. We're thinking the same thing.
Oh my God, none of us have any social skills anymore. It's just all disappeared.
Oh my goodness.
But no, like I said, I do think that like me entering year after year, Tony, you entering year after year, is to show people like your career is ever changing and it is ever evolving. And just when you think you're getting good, you will get better, and there is better, and you can keep putting better on top of better. And I want to show people that it never stops. It just keeps improving, and you can keep surprising yourself and reinventing no matter how long you've been doing it.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Just one more little housekeeping thing before I ask another couple of questions. Just to let you know, so if you purchase a conference pass, you get one free entry. So did you know that? If you don't, now you do. Okay, so if you are coming, and let's say, you don't feel like you have the time in post-processing or even, entering anything else, like in terms of the print or getting it organized, why don't you enter the in-camera artistry category? You just enter a raw file. You are done. Nothing else to do. So, by the way, the in-camera artistry category, we judge the embedded JPEG. So for those of you who don't know what that means, is that most of us are probably using Photomechanic to view our photographs. If you grab your raw file, put it in Photomechanic, however the image looks like in Photomechanic, and we extract that JPEG, we save as. So in other words, if you photograph on black and white on the day, your embedded JPEG is black and white, although your raw file can go in any different way. The black and white, in fact, will be judged. It's the embedded JPEG in there. So just know that
that's my new favorite category. The in-camera artistry is my absolute new favorite, because now I'm making myself insane to try to make everything perfect in camera. So if you are wildly competitive and obnoxious like me, it's a good category to go for.
Well, I love that, because Melissa and I introduced that category several years ago. It was like everyone was saying, "Oh, it's a Photoshop competition. It's all about digital." I'm like, hey, there's some of us who like to get it right in camera. Why wouldn't, there should be a home for people who are purists. And that being said, doesn't mean that if you post-produce in Photoshop or whatever, you're not a purist. There's simply a home for every discipline, and we celebrate that. So a couple of things. A message from Kristen: my stomach dropped when I saw my prints come up. I missed one of them being judged, and now I am flying in early this year, so that doesn't happen again. So that's really cool. And also, question from Frank, just to confirm, wedding albums are digital entry only? Yeah, so albums, there's no physical entry. Obviously, in my heart, I would love to physically get the albums, but it's a logistical nightmare, as you'd appreciate. But no matter what albums it is, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a storytelling driven, non-wedding, album, whether it's portrait, it could be anything and everything. I think the minimum of slides that you're actually going to enter is 10. The maximum is 50. Some people, like myself in the past, I will photograph the physicality of the album to give the judges an understanding of what this looks like physically, and then digitally represent the spreads of the album as well. So that's a pretty cool thing. Question as well: I love the in-camera artistry category, but can you repeat that again? You judge the JPEGs. I thought we're only allowed to submit the raw file. So yes, basically you submit the raw file to us. That tells us that this is the original file that was captured on. What we do, obviously for ease and understanding the program and uploading it into the ecosystem of the judging, we will grab that raw file. We will not touch anything to do with it. We won't increase levels. We're not going to adjust contrast. We're not going to crop it. The exact file we get, we're going to put it in Photomechanic. For those of you who don't know what that program is, go to camerabits.com. Photomechanic is sort of like the industry standard for viewing your photographs quickly and easily. We select that image, we save JPEG, and it'll be like, from memory, 1920 by 1080 pixels, 72 PPI, and then that is the image that we judge. So as you'd appreciate, if you're photographing in RAW, but you decide to change your picture style or your picture control on your camera, what you're viewing on the back of the camera at any given point is the embedded JPEG of that raw file. It's like a proxy image that you can view quickly and easily, rather than a camera having to churn out and a 45 megapixel photograph every time you click next to preview your file. So just know that, yes, we receive your raw file, we extract the embedded JPEG. If you've shot in color, it'll be shown in color. If you shot in black and white, it'll be shown in black and white. Here's a sensitive question or a comment. Maybe Tony, if you can address this briefly. So obviously, within the rules, you are able to send out your photographs to be retouched under your guidance, and also be printed with your guidance. And there are some people also that might do it themselves. How do you feel about that? I mean, why is that okay? Why can we do that? Because arguably there might be someone who has decent work, and then someone maybe who has not so great work but gets elevated in post-production. How do we feel about that, and why is that okay?
And why did you ask me that one?
Well,
first of all, let's remember. Look, I see some people doing some amazing work with an iPhone, and I was down the beach yesterday, the day before, and having lunch, and there was a gentleman standing there. It turns out he was a lawyer for a big firm, but a big case that's going on. Anyway, he was looking at this rain coming across the ocean and the light coming through. And I was standing next to him, and he walked past and he just sort of half looked at the photo, and he said, "Oh, wow, did you just take that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "What, on your phone?" I said, "Yeah." And he looked at me, he goes, "Mine doesn't look like that." I said, "Well, what were you trying to shoot?" The point is, and it was a long story, but photography starts with the eye. It starts with seeing things. And really, when we look at work in competitions, as much as we're looking at the print, the first half of it is, you know, does it, when it comes up on the screen, when I look at the image or the print, am I moved? Am I inspired or seduced to look closer? Does it hold me there? Does it make me ask questions? And all of these things. And that's purely the vision of what is in the full frame, what's being held within the corners. The print is the expression of that in the physical world. Not everybody can do everything. Most of us can't build a camera, but I know people who can, and they're very good at it. You know, some great landscape photographers built their own cameras, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to enter a landscape because I can't build my own camera. I don't know how to write software, you know, but I use software to finesse my images. I don't composite like some, but I don't have a problem with that. So at the end of the day, we're putting together a piece of work that I'm responsible for. Now, did I do every part of it? Did I see it, build the camera, shoot it, export it, edit it, print it, cut the mats, put the mats together, get on my bike, ride to Sydney, jump on a boat, sail to Vegas? No, you know, I took responsibility for bringing this beautiful, hopefully, piece of art into the world and sharing it with the audience and seeing what they thought, the audience being the jurors as much as anyone else. So I think different competitions have different agendas or different purposes. And I don't think if you have a competition which is purely for people who see it, shoot it, edit it, mat it, and print it and do it all themselves, it's a lot smaller competition. And I think what we're trying to do is celebrate good eyes, celebrate the ability to take responsibility for creating a great piece of visual communication. And so I don't have a problem with it for that reason, with one criteria, and that is that as long as it's transparent, you know, and the same principle applies to whether you print your own or get somebody to express your vision on paper because they know how to work that sort of side of printing. The other part is it's like documentary. If you're sharing an image, whether it's your competition or whatever, and suggesting to people or passing it off as real, then it should be real. And if it's not real, then people should be allowed to know. And after that, there's no argument. It's using photography, visual communication to share something. So yeah, that's my short answer. Do you want the long one?
I knew you would give an answer that was so articulate and gave us a fresh perspective. The word that I really love that you said is that what I'm responsible for. So you are responsible for it from that perspective, which doesn't imply you did everything, but it implies that you are responsible for photographing it. Certainly, that's certainly a criteria, but you know, you're responsible for directing the post-production and all that kind of stuff. And also towards the end of that comment, you pretty much suggested too that we're all on the same playing field. So if you feel that you can't compete with printing or color correction, or there's something that you just can't do well. Like I was on a phone call today, and actually Lynn may be even listening on the conversation right now. She asked the question, and you could tell that she's a first-time entrant this year, and you could tell that she doesn't really know the process of what paper to print on. She may have asked for glossy paper. She may have printed it on bigger, you know, a bigger print and all that kind of thing. And these are decisions that many of us make from the beginning that actually puts us behind the 8 ball a little bit. So just know that no matter what the rules are, whether they're the rules of the category, the division, the post-production, no matter what the rules are, we're all on the same playing field. And just so you know, every single image is looked at by Melissa and myself to a certain degree, because I sort of back her up and the committee does as well, so that we make sure that every single image and album and film, in-camera artistry, whatever it may be, everyone's at the same playing field. Okay, is it fair now? Is it fair? Great. Now let's judge them and let the cream rise to the top, and it usually does. So that's a really important thing to understand. So totally get your perspective, the general comment that was made, but just know we're all in the same playing field. And as long as we're responsible for it, as Tony eloquently suggested, I think it's great. So we're just on the hour. I want to finish up with a couple of comments from both of you. Susan, how has WPPI changed your life?
Oh, it's completely changed my life, like entirely. The very first year I ever went, I didn't know anybody. Like I didn't know anyone in the industry. I think I knew like one person kind of. And this year will be my 20th or 21st. And I have met literally all of my best friends here. I have friends who have become family. It's changed my life personally and professionally. I often credit Print Comp with being the single biggest thing that has helped me become the photographer that I am today. But I mean, it gave me a community in an industry where it's really hard to get community. It's very solitary. It's very lonely. Yeah, it's my favorite time of year because everyone I love is all in one place at the same time. Hopefully next year, COVID will not keep us from each other, but it has completely changed my life personally and professionally. And I still believe it.
Tell me, I love that. And I know that many of you watching have been there, would agree. A quick follow-up question. How did you feel when you became Grandmaster only recently? How did that feel to you? Because it was a milestone that you were chasing for a long time. How did you feel when, because let's be honest, Susan, because you were, you had a few entries, you were freaking out in between the hallways of the competition.
You can say it. I was not cool at all.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I'm saying, but I mean, I guess I want to, tell me about that feeling of the anticipation of trying to reach that milestone, and you were on the fringe of it, and then you finally did. Tell me about that feeling. It's
exactly how you would imagine the culmination of years and years and years of work to feel. It was a joyous moment. It was a release of a huge breath I'd been holding for a long time. And then it was an immediate thought of, okay, what next? So I achieved a dream, I hit a goal, and it immediately made me want to put a goal on top of it that's even bigger. So I guess that goal now is to just marry Melissa Ghionis, because I don't know where to go from here. So Jerry, I'm coming for you, I guess. I don't know, like, where do you go from here? I'm going to kidnap your dogs. Like, I have no clue, but I need a new professional goal.
Well, let's just say that I'm happy to share generally, but Melissa, she can be a backup plan. Maybe we can discuss that, but I just want to highlight that
you're never going to let us do this together ever again, ever. None of us will ever be able to Zoom together.
We know Melissa's not fussy.
Oh my God. Touche.
See, WPPI is trying to figure out how to pull this Zoom offline as fast as possible.
I'm in control. I'm in totally control right now. So I've got direct access to the WPPI page. So
I'll also take your dogs. The dogs are fine too. I can take the pet.
They are so adorable. I swim with Zoe every morning. She's awesome, and I spooned with Jazz yesterday. So life is good. I can't complain. Susan, to pivot, you are the 5th most awarded photographer of WPPI. That's pretty incredible.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I looked at it now. You are the 5th most awarded photographer. Like,
who's ahead of me? Sorry.
You've got Ryan, JB, Rocco, and another guy. But yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I have a new goal, Jerry.
There you go. Well, I mean, if I continue not to enter, then
I should catch up to you in like another 20 years, maybe 25.
But it's all good. Now, Tony, I want to finish off with a question from you. So the good news is, well, it's good and bad news as far as you're concerned. You being the chairman of judges last year didn't basically didn't place you in a position where you could actually win a trophy or a grand. And let's just acknowledge that you would have easily probably won a lazy couple of grands and a lazy several, trophies. You didn't. Now, because you can't come to WPPI because Australia is very strict at the moment, it means you can enter. I just checked. You are like 2 points away from getting your Grandmaster. So inevitably, unless you just don't enter, which you'd be crazy not to this year, you're going to become a Grandmaster of WPPI. How does that feel to be one of only a handful of people to do that in Australia and WPPI? Tell me about success in longevity in terms of how long you've been doing it, that commitment to craft and the Honours of Excellence program in that respect. Tell me about that.
Ooh, there's a lot of questions. Number one, Melissa is extremely fussy and you're a very lucky man. So be aware that you've gone through a huge filter system to get to where you are. Number two, I think I have to also win a grand, and I can't. Well, I can, but the category I enter, maybe it doesn't always get there. So I think I don't think I can get my grand, but thank you. I'll keep trying. I won't give up.
Well, I'm saying to you that you should enter. You should enter, Tony. Your work is always.
Jerry, I will enter because I can.
Thank you.
The last couple of years I entered, but yeah. Anyway.
Awesome.
Longevity. Okay, so one of the things I realized a few years ago was if you keep entering, you'll get better. We get better by default. And the danger is if you think, okay, this year I got an 89, 92, 91, 94, you go, I'm going to improve next year. It gets harder. And that puts a lot of stress on you. And that's, you're not going to keep getting up and up because the 100 doesn't keep moving as well. You keep moving into that bracket. So what to do? So I realized years ago, I stopped looking at each year as I have to get better. And I looked at my grade average, a bit like a golfer with a part, what's your handicap and what's your average? So I worked out what my average was over 15, 20 years, of entering AIPP or entering WPPI. And, I forget the exact number, but I think a few years ago when I looked, it was about like 86.8 since I'd started entering. And I thought, okay, so this year when I enter, or, like as in a few years ago, I need to get 86.9 average. I need to lift my average. The golfer who goes out and might be on a handicap of 6, meaning they normally hit about a 78 for 18 or something like that. Just because they hit 82 doesn't mean suddenly they became a bad golfer. It just means they had a bad day or made a couple of bad decisions. So when I enter, that's what I do. Now, in terms of awards, I hate talking. I always find it difficult to talk about successes, I suppose. But last year, at the beginning of the year, I was with Rocco. We went to SWPP. And I went there and participated in the competition. And, I was really, it was kind of an amazing feeling I hadn't had for a while when I took off a couple of categories and then a couple of major categories and then took out the overall print competition as the highest thing. And that was the whale shot surrounded by sharks that I think Keith referred to it. And it was on several levels. Susan talked about pushing yourself into other areas. It was in nature. It was, and someone said to me, God, I didn't realize you entered nature. How many times have you done that? And I said, well, this is the first print I've entered in nature. And I'm thinking I might keep entering nature at some point because it goes that way. So pushing into new competitions, which have different criteria, different eyes, etc. But it's longevity to me now, it's about consistency. And I think that's probably the key word, Jerry, consistency. It's not about whether you win this year and if you don't win this year, you've suddenly gone backwards. You don't go backwards. Trust me, you don't go backwards. I've been doing this for, as Jerry happily said, 3 decades. You never go backwards. Even if your result looks like you've slipped, it's more learning. You cannot unlearn what you learn. And if you have a bad year, it's probably in the long term going to make you more successful than a good year because you'll find out things you didn't do well, or you'll find out things that people aren't interpreting. And I've always said that you might think you know what your pitch is about, but in reality, it's what other people see in your pictures that counts. The meaning of your visual communication is in the response that you get, irrespective of what you wanted it to be. And it's become incumbent on us to look at what people say about our pictures and ask, if that's not what I want them to see, then I need to change, not them. If the judges don't see it, I need to change, not them. And if I hang in an exhibition tonight when we go to the opening, you know, we put it all up early in the week. And I walked in and there was an image that I and ahed and I just didn't like. And I walked in and they said, oh, we had a couple of people in this as soon as we hung it. And somebody's put a deposit down on one of the images. I said, oh, great, which one is it? Thinking it's the best ones. And it was the one I was going to pull out. So you continuously learn. So long-term goal for me, consistency. If I enter this year, I'll enter. And if I can get 75% of my prints gets up and over silver, and if I can get an average of 86.9 instead of 86.8, I'm a happy person. Grandmaster, that would be wonderful. But, you know, there's some pretty good grandmasters out there.
Thank you, mate. Incredible comments, as always. It's very consistent with one of my mantras that you don't have to be the best. You simply have to be better than last week, no matter what level you're at. And that's the thing, is that being a WPPI just makes you better. Playing with more experienced players makes you better. And so-called failure is really the foundation to success. I've always said that. Whether we realize it at the time, that's a different story. Couple of reminders before we say a last farewell here. So the live judging, if you want the best learning experience, really anything in this industry, in my humble opinion, I'm sure the guys would agree here, and that is attend the judging if you can. If you are in part of the world where you can travel to Las Vegas in this August, do yourself and your future self a favor and attend. And that live judging is August 15 and 16. The conference is August 16 to 19. The actual awards ceremony is on the 18th. Always looking forward to what Susan's going to wear and Melissa's going to wear. It's always a fun night to check out some beautiful fashion. It's sort of like the Oscars of our industry, which is always awesome. The final deadline. This is really, really, really important. Okay, the final deadline to enter. There's no extensions. This is the final one. You must enter and upload and pay for your entries by June the 16th. If you are entering albums or in-camera artistry, once you upload your files and you do that by the 16th of June, you are done. If you are entering the print category, you have to enter your raw file, your finished digital file, your completed retouched file, whatever that may be, and whether it's albums and film, and then you basically physically send us those print entries and those film entries as of after the 16th of June and before the end of the month. And remember, there is no time limit on your entries. In other words, when you photographed your entries, doesn't really matter in the context of the competition. In other words, if you haven't shot in the last year and you want to go back and look at your earlier work, just do that and you'll find some hidden gems in there that you really didn't appreciate when you did it. So make sure you enter, and remember that if you've actually already purchased a conference pass, you get a free entry. So why not enter, and we'll see how we go. So Susan, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the competition as always. I'm looking forward to seeing your entries as always. Tony, you'll be sorely missed this year as a chairman of judges. I've got to step back in that role.
Just start swimming right now.
Yeah, start swimming. You'll be fine.
Like a little boat.
They won't let me back. They won't let me back. It's
I know.
absolutely
Stay with us. No big deal.
At least you'll survive, Tony. You'll survive. That's the most important thing. But Tony, I will be keeping that seat warm for you this year, and certainly we'll have you back in that role next year if you're willing and able and available to come back. So, guys, thank you so much for all that you do for the industry, for the competition, for WPPI. Been a pleasure and an honor and a personal. Just fantastic to see your beautiful faces once again. So, Susan, can't wait to see you personally. Tony, always a pleasure to catch up with you, mate, even if it's online. Thanks again for everything you guys do.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us. So good to see that absolute amazing personality, Susan. You're such a vibrant, you get younger, obviously, you really do.
That's just Botox. It's fine.
I just love the way what you bring to it. And Jerry, the master, absolute master. Can I just share this with everybody quickly? We all have our highs and lows. We have our dreams and disasters. And, WPPI is where you get to share that in a community of like-minded souls it's a solo pursuit. So Susan said it. We do this, we go out, we're the one looking through the lens. But hey, it's such a great feeling to share it with people who understand how we feel. So I can't get to Vegas this year in WPPI, and I'm going to miss it. But damn, if you live close enough or you can get there, you should be there, because as Susan said, it'll make a massive difference in your future and a great experience in your life. So go
It's
for
true.
it. And I'll see you next year, hopefully.
Nothing more to say. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.